How's your day going?
Good, good, man. I'm excited for tonight. I was started thinking, and prepped with all the bands and things that you bring me with your vast knowledge of music. I start listening to everything that you bring me, and I've yet to be disappointed with it. I mean, tonight's no exception. I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing some knowledge from our guest coming out. So it's going to be a good one.
Tonight's, I'll tell you this. I say this every time, but I feel like every time we are privileged to bring somebody on, I have a story, right, that I tell. And I really have a story. This is not just made up stuff. I wish it was. So this guy we bring on in a minute, Doctor. They call him the Doctor because he's such a great guitarist. Mark Lee, founding member of a band you may have heard of called Third Day. The world has heard of them. I remember one day, me and my boys were rolling. I had a Saturn, I had an '02 Saturn, my first car. Stick shift, didn't know how to drive it, didn't have AC, nothing like that. Didn't even have a CD player, but had one of those portable Discmans, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh
Plug
yeah,
the tape
I
in.
remember
So
this.
we're rolling, trying to figure out how to stick shift this thing. And we found this disc at this place called the Better Book Room. It was a place where you could
Mhm.
buy positive Christian music. And it was called Wow 1998, I believe is what it was. And we're sitting there and we hear the song come on. It's got this intro come on. The song was called My Hope Is You. I'm like, dude, this is Pearl Jam or something on Wow Christian hits. We're like freaking out, me and my boys, right? Because we grew up kind of in that background where it was like we could listen to other stuff, but it was predominantly more like positive face stuff. Come to find
Yeah.
out, it was a band, in my opinion, way better than Pearl Jam. I personally believe that. It was Third Day, and Mark was just shredding
Yeah.
it. It was a song that was called "My Hope Is You." Then started looking at
Mhm.
this band. This band, I'm telling you, man, before they kind of did their farewell tour, they had the amount of hits and amazing work Mark and Mac have done together, and this
Mhm.
Third Day just juggernaut. I mean, Time was a classic album, obviously come together. There, I mean, the amount of Grammys these guys have won. Wire, my personal favorite, Revelation, Call My Name is one of those songs that I play on repeat almost year round.
Mhm.
And then even when they ended it with Revival and some of the live stuff after that, just unlimited amounts of amazing hits. And these guys
Yeah.
just, they know how to make music. Now, Dane, what's cool is after that, Max kind of doing his thing, and now Mark is going into some kicking awesome kind of country type stuff. I get almost like this Randy Travis feel, if I want to say it for
Yeah.
it. He just continues to amaze. All these years, he's still making great hits, Dane. So
Yeah.
you know me, I get excited just a little bit. So
Oh yeah.
let me put my fanboy aside and bring on Mark Lee himself. Mark, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing very good. Man, that was a great setup. It was so good.
It's all true, brother.
Awesome.
All true, brother. I appreciate you and what you've done for music, and you're one of the reasons.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I've tried nowhere near your capabilities, but I've tried to play, and you're one of my influences. So thanks for
Yeah.
making time for us. Okay, so.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, and I hope I live up to the hype when we do the interview here.
Oh man, you're already cooler. They say don't meet your heroes, but I'm already excited. So I'm going to kick the question set off, Mark. Kind of looking at obviously your body of work. I know there's got to be some gold, kind of like hidden nuggets of information here. Before obviously dropping the work that you did with Third Day, going back in the
Mhm.
day. You as a guitarist, I'm curious. Maybe your first song, maybe some garage stuff. When did this begin for you as a musician? You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I've always done music. I mean, as literally as long as I can remember. My brother and I had this Winnie the Pooh record player, and once we got through all of like the Disney classics, we listened to like Glenn Campbell, Rhinestone Cowboy. We listened to Hiss, Ace Frehley kind of stuff. So I've always loved music. Started playing violin when I was a really little kid. Played piano, played trombone in the marching band. But it really just all just clicked for me when I started playing guitar. My dad got me a guitar for my 15th birthday. I had actually, and this is a whole separate story. I literally have a book about it. But I got hit by a truck when I was in ninth grade.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
yeah, got hit by a truck, and as you can imagine, had some pretty serious injuries. I was in and out of the hospital. During that time, though, I mean, I literally just sat around watching MTV like all the time, and so
Mhm.
guitar wasn't really on my radar or anything at that point. But I'd been watching MTV, and there was a guy, I want to say it was David Gilmour. I'm not 100% sure. Was on the TV playing, and my dad just walked in the room without skipping a beat. He just looked up there, saw this guy playing guitar, and he's like, "Oh, son, you could do that." And so my dad got me a guitar for my 15th birthday, and that was like just kind of the beginnings of me really getting into guitar. And I, they always say like if there's something that comes easily for you that's harder for other people, maybe not always, but maybe that could point towards it's perhaps a talent you have. So guitar is just something that just always clicked for me,
Mhm.
and as soon as I started playing it, I just loved
Man.
it. played in, bounced around some little garage bands in high school. Mac, you were talking about during the intro there. He and I went to the same high school. He was in a couple of the garage bands with me, and
That's
then
cool.
we right out of high school. Mac in particular was he had just had this really profound. God was really calling him back. Mac had become a Christian when he was a little kid, but just really had this big rededication kind of experience.
Hmm.
And he just, we were doing cover music, and Mac wasn't really comfortable with the lyrics that we were doing, and so he's like, you know what? I feel like I've got to quit the band, and that was just devastating to me. As this 18-year-old just out of high school, I finally had this band. That was my dream. I'd always wanted to do, and then I felt like that was being taken away. So I was like really bummed about that. A couple months later, I'm over hanging out at Mac's house. We were, kind of getting ready to go to college. The whole thing, and we were
Hmm.
both just, kind of lamenting about not that musical outlet, not being in a band anymore. And I have no idea to this day where this came from, but I just said, hey, what if we started a Christian band? And Mac was like, yeah, let's do that. And we, talked about it. We thought we were some kind of pioneers. We didn't know that there were bands like Petra,
Yeah.
Striper, Amy Grant, all these artists that had been making great Christian music for many years.
Yeah.
We went to the music store the next day, saw they have a whole Christian music section, and that was like our beginnings of our sort of education. We got really into Michael Levy Smith was a big influence.
Yeah.
We were starting out. Wes King was another artist from Atlanta that we loved him, and Rich Mullins, he
Yeah,
was
man.
a big influence on us as well. So yeah, we just once we started doing the Christian music, I don't know, we just started taking everything a lot more seriously. We started writing our own songs and rehearsing. The garage bands, we would just basically show up and try to play, and it was always
Right.
terrible. But I don't know, we were doing this and we just wanted it to be excellent. And so we just started just working really hard at our craft, the songwriting side and figuring out how to put on a show. And then, that was, gosh, 1991, we did our farewell tour in 2018. So for 27 years, we had that going. It was just
Wow.
an
And it,
amazing thing to be part of.
and
Wow.
Dana and I say this all the time, Mark, and we stand behind this. We feel like, not that we don't love all music, we feel like most great artists that started somewhere in the 90s. And it's like when you're saying
Yeah.
MTV and your guys it started, it's how I feel. All the greats, in my opinion, they started somewhere in the 90s. And what's cool, man, about this paradigm shift, especially with the world nowadays, the world needs more positive music and things like that. I feel like a lot of times, man, your music is actually, how do I say this? I would rather listen to your stuff,
Yeah.
especially as skilled and as
Absolutely.
musician, as great as you are. I would rather put on something from you nowadays and maybe something that I hear on mainstream. It does more for the soul. So, question I have for
Yeah.
you, and this is a bonus question, then before you take two.
Yep.
Every
Yep.
guitarist has their baby, like that guitar where they're like, that's my baby. My dad, my first real guitar, he got me a purple Ibanez Roadstar. I'll never forget it. Dane hates the story. When you finally, maybe when you got the band going, Mark, I'm curious, what was your baby, like your first, this is my guitar? You remember what it was? I'm curious.
Yeah, so and that's kind of changed really through the years. I'm honest right now, just because it's right here. I've got
Oh,
this. It's an acoustic. My wife actually gave this to me for Christmas, and I love it. I had to do a little shameless plug. There's that.
All
that's
right.
beautiful.
But as far as like when we were first starting out, I actually and we were dating at the time. My wife, girlfriend at the time, got me a Fender Thin Line Telly for birthday present. This would have been, gosh, about 96, I want to say. And it's the same guitar that Coldplay used and really made famous. But this was pre-Coldplay. So at the time, it
Right.
was like really cool rootsy telly with the humbuckers on it. So it had like that telly like kind of
Yeah,
twang,
I'm with
but
you.
with the humbuckers that you could make it like kind of growl a little bit more, be a little bit heavier with it. So love that guitar. That was that when I got that guitar, that was when I figured out, oh, this is what, for me anyway, what an electric guitar is supposed to sound like.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
always kind of chasing after that same kind of vibe, but trying to make it a little bit better tone wise, through the years.
Oh yeah.
Three of my guitar buddies had a bet, Mark. Because I bet you for a Telly guy, one of my buddies, he swore that you were going to say Les Paul. So I'm glad I won that little side bet. Thanks, Aaron. Then go ahead, man.
Oh,
Go,
there you
go
go.
ahead. Yeah.
Now, whenever you got that, you had a little bit of confidence going around. Do you recall in some of those early days where you guys started maybe cutting your teeth in front of crowds, maybe some of those early gigs where where did you guys start out as far as,
Mm.
getting on and playing in front of crowds?
Yeah, I mean, we started out at absolute just ground zero. With
Mhm.
us making that decision, I think it was a great decision. I really feel like it was a calling, like somebody would be called into maybe being a pastor or some kind of ministry.
Mhm.
But there's not really a built-in like network of places to play and cut your
Yeah.
teeth as a musician. Like there are, if you start a country band, you can go play
Yeah.
in clubs and things like that.
Yeah.
So we just would play anywhere we could find. Like I
Mhm.
remember this one specific time where there was a local, this tiny little country church was doing this. They called it a youth night, and they'd put a flyer out about it. Hey, come, share your talent or whatever. So Mac and I did not know a soul at that church, and we just showed up to their youth night and played. And here we are, this kind of scraggly haired, like little rock band guys. We're playing this thing, and it was very clean cut, super conservative, little country church. And as we're up there playing, we saw the head pastor go over and like whisper in the youth pastor's ear, and I was like, "Oh, we're about to get like just
Yeah.
kicked off the
Read out.
stage. There's a cane is gonna like pull us off the stage or something." But that was just one example of many, many of this little anything that we could do to just try to build up the experience. There also, I mentioned about influences a minute ago. There was a band called Jacob's Trouble who was from Atlanta also,
Okay.
and they were really within, it's this kind of subgenre of a subgenre, but within kind of the Christian rock, Christian sort of alternative scene, late 80s, early 90s. They were actually pretty big. And they would,
Mhm.
because they were from Atlanta, they would play around here all the time. And we would go to their shows. I mean, I probably saw those guys 20 times over a
Mhm.
That's awesome.
couple years, and we maybe not literally, but almost literally, are standing in the back like taking notes of, oh, this is how you put on a show. So I think it was watching other bands and then just any opportunity we would have. And I
Yeah.
honestly, for the first probably 4 years that I was in a band, I would get just the worst stage fright. I would
Really?
be absolutely terrified to go on stage. And I remember it was probably about, we started in 91. So this was probably about 95. And we already had a record out with Great Art Records, already kind of been making a name for ourselves a little bit. We were doing a show with it was Jars of Clay. We were doing a show with them up in
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Throwback. Yeah, man. That's
doing a
awesome.
show with
Yeah.
them in Rome, Georgia, and they actually, I have no idea why, because they were huge at the time. Maybe because it was outside Atlanta and they thought we would have more of a hometown crowd. We were playing last, and so I'm standing out in the crowd watching Jars do their show, and I was looking around. Everybody was having fun. I was having fun, and I was like, why don't I just do that on stage instead of being so just terrified about I don't know what, about
Yeah.
my mind thinking about what the worst possible scenario is going to be, or everybody's going to laugh. I have no idea, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get up there and have fun. And just something in that moment just clicked. And I never really had an issue with the stage fright or anything again. So,
Mm.
That's
So,
cool.
so I was gonna say, so building from there, what are some of your maybe more memorable events and gigs you've done through the years?
oh, sure. A few things come to mind. So I mentioned about Rich Mullins being a really big influence on the band we were starting out. We had the opportunity, I want to say it was probably mid to late 90s. Rich Mullins was putting out his greatest hits album, and they did this little tribute concert in Nashville. And most of the other artists on the bill were friends of Rich that had either toured with him or sang on his records. And we happened to be label mates of Rich Mullins, and they invited us to be a part of that. So we played, and we had met Rich a couple of times. We were, I mean, just huge fans. And so that was just this really big emotional kind of night for all of us to be able to literally, because Rich is sitting there in the front row. So for us to be able
Wow.
to play one of Rich's
That's cool.
songs, here's one of our musical heroes, spiritual heroes, just sitting right there
Hmm.
on the front row. So that was amazing. So that comes to mind. The first time we ever played in the UK back in, I want to say it was about 04. I might be getting the dates just a little bit off, but I think it was like 2004. We played at this little club in London, and there people just came from all over the UK. People came up from like France and the Netherlands, Germany. They all
Wow.
descended on this little theater in London, and you just could feel like the excitement. I mean, there was a huge line of people waiting around, around the block to get in to the venue when the show started. And we played, and we had the Offerings album. I think maybe
Hmm.
Offerings was out by that point. So we had the worship, was a big thing that we were doing at that point in time, and people were just ready for it. They were hungry. It was really like more about the audience than it was us. That was just, I
Mhm.
always go back to that as just being this really special
That's awesome.
night. And then the other thing I have to mention too, I think the statistic is that we were the first Christian band to do a USO tour, at least like an official. Or some other bands had gone over and done things, but we did a USO tour back in 2008. Went over to Kuwait and Iraq and played for the troops.
That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
that was just an amazing thing to be a part of. And what's been really
Wow.
cool is we're over there in Baghdad and some of the military bases around there doing shows, and probably I mean really to this day every few months I'll meet somebody at a show who saw us over there and talked about what a neat event
Wow.
that was and how cool it was for us to go do it. Yeah, so that was a really neat thing for us to try to give back a little bit for the troops that just do so much and a lot of times underappreciated. So that was a great thing to be a part of.
Man,
Wow.
and you talk a lot about influence. I keep coming back to that influence. I played Offerings over and over again, and the movement. It's neat. I think it's cool because you guys were one of the founding the way modern worship is set up now. I think about things like Hillsong, even like Torrin Wells, even like Phil Wickham. Some of the things you guys have done, you set the stage for this amazing rock band. You made it cool. I mean, not that it never was not cool, but you made worship music cool. Like it was like, dude, when
Mm.
Offerings came out, my boys were like, we want to do this at church too. It was neat, like the transition to where it was cool to be like great musicians and great top tier talent and still make music that was thankful and praising and all that. It was really cool, that
Yep.
paradigm shift. You guys, people like you, POD, I think DC Talk played a big part in that. It's okay to have top notch music and still have a message that you want to promote. You know what I'm saying? It's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That was a really neat season to be a part of. We had been, I mentioned Jacob's Trouble, Jars of Clay,
Hmm.
DC Talk, Audio Adrenaline, Newsboys.
Hmm.
There was this really cool little scene of, you would just call it like Christian rock at that point in
Yeah.
time through the 90s. And then it was nothing necessarily intentional. Worship had just always been a part of what a third day concert was like. We always had this segment of the show where we would, and it wasn't that we would like, get quiet and start strumming acoustic guitars. We would just keep playing like we would play, but we would just have a couple of songs where we really would just focus on worshiping God through the
Yeah.
music.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like we really were any kind of big, revolutionaries or pioneers or anything, because you had, Delirious was doing it a little
Right.
bit. Michael W. Smith for sure. I mentioned him about being an influence, but I think just the fact that we had done 3 albums and we just felt we'd always done worship as a part of what we did, and we wanted to have an album that just sort of reflected that. And originally, it was just going to be this extra album. It wasn't going to be like an official release. It was just this little extra fun thing that we're going to put out. And even the fact that we felt like we had to like explain to people what we were doing and why we were doing it. It just, it was just a little bit different for us. Looking back, you could see that it was, we weren't, we weren't like the thing at all, but I feel like we were a part of a
Yeah.
movement, something God was
Absolutely.
doing through
Yeah.
younger bands to, yeah, like you were saying, to just say, you don't have to, get out the acoustic guitars and the tambourines. You can still, play electric and, bring the
Yeah.
rock
Rock.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
have it be a worshipful kind of thing. And so, yeah, worship has evolved so much since then. And I'm a big fan, actually. I've led worship for the last few years at the local church level. I actually, my sort of day job these days, I teach at a school and I work with high school kids that are, we have like worship band. And so I'm kind
That's
of
cool.
teaching them, hopefully
Wow.
trying to impart some of the wisdom that I've learned, through the years. But I love worship music. I'm around it all the time, and it's evolved so much. But at the same time, I would like to think that maybe we had a little something to do with at least maybe taking a step towards where it is now. But yeah, you had
Mm.
artists like Chris Tomlin. You mentioned Phil Wickham. Passion, Elevation, Bethel. All these great
Yeah.
artists that have come along, and it's really evolved into like this whole other thing. But it was neat to see that we were just one little maybe evolutionary
Oh no,
is what it is now. So
you guys were a big part of that, man. I'm telling you, because I can say that full heart, full confidence, man. It took off because you guys did it, and we've talked about this many times. You guys dropped Offering, Newsboys dropped Adoration, Auto Adrenaline came out with kind of like their new singer, and then Elevate. Even now, someone like the Reach City, the Brandon Lake, this whole thing just came from you guys were some of the founding members. So it's cool when you're thinking about influence. It's very clear you've left a huge shadow on music.
Mhm.
It's very clear when I hear your music, when I hear you as a musician, taking a moment to scale that down, when I watch you play, I've always said you remind me of another member of the Helicasters. When I see you play, that's what I think of. I automatically think of that. So I'm curious, like when you, from a guitarist standpoint, what's maybe two or
Mm.
three of your biggest influences as an artist? You know?
yeah, so being from the Atlanta area, I was very influenced by a lot of the artists, that were part of the scene. We came up in early '90s, so a lot of those bands that were big then. You think about Georgia Satellites,
Yeah,
Black Crows were huge, REM. Also, a little bit later, you had Collective Soul, uh, and really, there was a band from Atlanta that I don't. They never really got big beyond maybe Atlanta and the Southeast, but they were called Driving and Crying. Love those guys. They uh, just they were able to incorporate like kind of the Southern rock thing, but in this
Mm.
really cool, almost leaning towards like alternative kind of way that
okay.
people think about Southern rock and they instantly start thinking about like Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers. I love that stuff, but there's this kind of like boogie element to it, for lack of a better
Mm.
word. It's
Yeah,
like groove thing. And I don't feel like Third Day ever really did that. And
right.
I'm a fan of that music, and I'm very flattered when people, would compare us and call us a Southern rock band. But I feel like we were more like a almost a Southern like alternative band, maybe
Yeah,
because
I
Mm.
agree. I agree. Yeah,
I think just rhythmically and the way we put songs together was very different than the Godfathers, the Leonard Skinner, Allman Brothers, Marshall
Yeah.
Tucker of the world.
Mm.
I I almost feel like again from what caught my ear from you, and again I'm a huge fan of grunge. I almost feel more of the element of like post grunge. That's when I listen to the stuff that you guys have done. I'm like your solos. When I listen throughout your catalog, that's just me though. Dang, I have to stop myself. But I see the southern thing, but I see more of the post grunge movement. But anyway, Dan, go ahead
Yeah.
before I
Oh, it's
I go on
definitely
a
yeah.
rail.
I think you're on. Yeah. It definitely was part of that. Yeah. We came up in the early '90s, and yes, we're from Atlanta, but we were sitting around listening to Pearl Jam and Nirvana just like everybody else. So
There you
I'm
go.
sure that was a big influence
Oh
on
yeah.
us.
There you go. Go ahead, Dane. I'll go on a candy stick on that one, Dane.
Oh yeah. So now that you said you guys had your farewell tour, and I guess there's always a muse in everybody. Once you're an artist and a writer, you're always doing it. So now that we're in 2024, what are some of the things that are on the horizon for you musically and personally that you're
Yeah.
working on?
Yeah, so we did our farewell tour in 2018, and
Mhm.
my goal, after that was I'm just going to keep doing this as long as
Mhm.
people will let me, as long as there's a stage, as long as there's an opportunity to write and record music, I'm just going to keep doing it. So I've put out an EP in
Yeah.
2018. I've released a few, the release schedule got a little weird as it did with everybody with COVID and different
Yeah.
things the last few years, but I have been writing quite a bit this year, and I've actually been going back towards the worship side of things again. I think a lot of it because as I was saying earlier, I've led at the local church level. I've been working with these younger high school kids, literally,
Mhm.
uh, worship, and I just really like caught the bug again to really want to write and record that kind of music. So I am
Mhm.
hoping to be in the studio and record some stuff this summer. And I'll just gradually start releasing that stuff later this year, and hopefully I can have like a full project that I can put out by maybe early next year. You never know, but that's the plan at least right now. I'm still doing a lot of live shows. I'm actually going to be up in I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but I'm about to do a show up in Quincy, Illinois, the thriving metropolis of Quincy, Illinois.
Let's go. Okay.
I actually have a whole tour that's going to be exclusively in Michigan this summer. That's going to be interesting. I'm going to be doing like 4 shows in Michigan in July, and then I've got kind of a smattering of other shows going on later in the summer and the fall. But yeah, so still doing the live thing. I'm really excited about this worship stuff I've been working on, and look forward to putting some music out soon.
Anywhere near Kansas? Because if we get close, we got to see it, man. So
I will definitely let you know. There's not any Kansas on the horizon right now, but if I find out, I'll let
me know.
There you go.
By the way, man, let me know because we'll be there. We'll promote the heck out of it. When you dropped your level, find me. I gotta say, bro, your mullet game was on point for that release, dude. It was the sick mullet. I was like, he's got a nice head of lettuce. So
I still, I don't know if you could tell, I still
it's good, man.
But I haven't. I used to like really like style that. It almost looked like Stephen Curtis Chapman for back in the day. But yeah,
there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was my one COVID thing that I did. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if I just full on just unapologetically like just got a mullet and just see what happens. And I did it as kind of a joke, but it's been like sort of the stylish thing. A lot of the kids, and ball players have been doing it the last few years.
Yeah.
So why
I'm
not?
jealous of it, man. It's full on Billy Ray, and I love it. It's so good, man. So I'm jealous. I want it. So I told Dan, I was like, dude, I envy anybody with the sick mullet. So in the song, when I showed him how you level 5, he's like, dude, this really is kind of, it's got that kick and retro thing. So I love it, dude. So anyway, man, let me talk mullets another day. There's a segment that we do. I guarantee you, in all the media that you've done, Dane laughs every time. This is going on episode 250 of this segment, Mark, that we do called Rapid Fire. Let me set the stage of how this works. We've got 5 questions. And what we do, we get questions from around the world, anywhere from like Fiji to Finland. And we'll take these questions and we'll ask you to pick a choice. Dane and I bet on what we think you're going to say. There's no wrong answer. We've already got our selections. We have already picked what we think you're going to say. We're betting on you. So if I get more picks right, I get lunch by Dane. If Dane gets more picks right, I give Dane lunch. It's kind of like a little wager we have on you for lunch of what we think you're going to say. It's really cool. Okay.
I'm feeling some pressure, but I'll do my best.
It's okay, man. So here's the thing. No wrong answer. And imagine for this segment that nothing is off the table. Reality doesn't exist. You can go back in time in this one. It's kind of a fun little Rorschach test about your personality. Okay.
So, all right, let's go.
So first question. So you're going to go back. You're going to be transplanted back in time. The doctor, the musician that you are now, you're going back into the 90s. And 2 of these bands approach you and say, Mark, we want you to fill in. Love the band. Love what you're doing with Third Day. But we want you to record this album for us. We need you to be the guitarist on this album. You can choose to drop alongside of Jerry. You can do Jar of Flies. You can be a guitarist on Jar of Flies. Or you can be a part of making Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. Hard choice.
Man. Oh, that's not fair. Okay, so I actually saw Cantrell do a show in Atlanta last year, and it was unbelievable. It was so good. It was solo, and I really didn't know what to expect. Is this the rapid fire thing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. So forget it.
Take your time.
I'll tell you. You can elaborate.
I'll tell you the story later. No, but I'll tell you this real quick. So I saw him play, and my brother-in-law invited me. Of course, I was a fan of Alice in Chains back in the day, but didn't really know a whole lot about his solo stuff. And y'all, it was, I don't know if you've ever seen him do a solo. It was unbelievable. It was so good. It's one of the best, like probably 5 or 6 shows I've ever been to. It was great. So after that setup, I would do Siamese Dream.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's go, man. Yeah.
I mean, and I love Alice in Chains. I specifically love that album. I love that they, everybody was doing like the unplugged thing. And they're like, okay, we're going to do our version of that. We're going to do this acoustic thing. And it was so cool. But I literally have like 5 Smashing Pumpkins shirts. I just
That's
love
awesome.
it. So just to be able to hang out with Billy Corgan a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that like musical genius could rub off. I'd be down with that.
I'm sad, Dane, because you know what I picked, dude. I had Jar of Flies on.
Oh yeah, I did too.
So,
but that was a good curveball you threw us. But we love the story.
Awesome.
Definitely,
that's awesome.
That was not fair. That's a tough one.
So that's good, man. And you're welcome to the stories. The rapid fire part just means that you have to pick one of the 2. You can take your time. So the next one, this is another 90s question. They're on the 90s thing tonight. So we're going back in the 90s, and both of these guys are going on tour, and they're sick for the night. They said, hey man, we know you're a great vocalist. We want you to step out from behind the guitar and do our set and be the live performer and just be the frontman for the night.
Ooh,
So Garth calls you up to take over for the night for a concert, and Alan Jackson calls you up to take over for the night to do a show. Garth or Alan, gotta pick one. Which one are you going with?
Oh, it's Alan Jackson all day.
Let's go. Let's go.
Alan Jackson. He's a Georgia boy. I gotta pick him. He's so good. Yeah.
Dane, I had that one. Dane, how about you, man? Let's go. Let's go.
Come on, I do that. Yeah.
Did you have Alan, Dane, on that one?
Oh yeah, had Alan Jackson, absolutely.
He is by far my favorite country artist. And then Mark Lee, you're tied. So.
Hey, I'll take that. Hey, Alan, he's definitely up there. I always liked Clint Black, but I think Alan Jackson is like right there, probably second, maybe third favorite. Yeah, he's awesome.
We saw him play a few years back. He came through Kansas. I mean, he still got it. He was jumping around doing his thing. He still got it, So love it, man. So check this one out. Here's another one. This is going to be a very interesting. This is a weird question. This is modern day. So this is this summer. The MTV, it's funny you said that, calls you up and says, hey, Mark, we want you to be a part of, how like they have like all these interesting TV shows. Like there's a TV show about Legos, TV show about Hot Wheels, just kind of stuff like that, right? So they say, hey, we want you and one of these other dudes from the 90s to co-host a show about slinkies, like magic slinkies, things like that, slinkies, right? So check this out. This is an interesting dynamic. You can be a co-host with Maynard. Everybody loves Maynard. He's got a cool vibe with Tool and all that. Or you can do this Slinkies show with Mark McGrath of Sugar Ray. Maynard, Mark McGrath, TV show about Slinkies. Who's your co-host?
Yeah, I honestly, like, I'm sure either one of those guys would be cool. Mark McGrath seems like he maybe would be a better hang.
Yeah.
But Maynard is like just so like eccentric and just out there. I almost would like just want to hang out with him just a little bit. And you got Slinkies too. I think I'd like to see Stake on the Slinky maybe a little bit more than Mark McGrath, but that's a tough one too, for sure.
You going Maynard? Is that what you're going with?
I'm going Maynard. Yes.
Dane, I had Mark on that one. Dane. Oh man, Dane. Who'd you have, Dane, on that one?
Yeah, I had Mark as well because I've seen him do. He's pretty good at. I think he did a game show. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but he did a really good job at that.
Too. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
We're tying up, man. Okay, so next one. This is an interesting one. So you got a cool voice. You always got that awesome kind of that powerful voice. So they want you to be a part of a next chapter of one of these two cool cartoons. They want Mark Lee to step in and be a voiceover character, right? So you can be, it's kind of cool. You can be a part of the next Shrek. You can be a character in Shrek, or you can be a part of the next Kung Fu Panda. It's hot right now, but you can be a part of Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, a voiceover. Who are you going with?
Man, that's another tough one, and I love both of those franchises. But I'm gonna go because I just love Jack Black. I mean, I'm all about Jack Black. I'm going Kung Fu Panda.
Dane, I had Shrek, man. What'd you have on that one?
Yeah, I had Shrek too, man. I am striking out.
We're tied, me and Dane. But did you see, by the way, Mark? Did you see his remake when he dropped "Hit Me, Baby, One More Time"? And it's just so good. The Tenacious D version. Have you seen that?
No, I need to see that. I'll have to check it out.
It was like last week. He just put it out, and it's like it's full on. They did the Britney cover, and it's Jack Black doing the Tenacious D thing, and it is on point. It is. I'll send it to you because it's classic. It's an instant
I'll
classic.
Check that out. Sure, that's awesome.
Well, maybe I'll win this one, Dane. This is the final one of Rapid. So this is another take down your musical genius. This question, they want you to make a score, a movie soundtrack. Okay, you're going to be responsible for making a movie soundtrack, and we're big fans of both of these franchises. So I can't imagine how tough this question is going to be. They want you to make the soundtrack for the next Star Wars movie, Mark, or check this out, you can make the soundtrack for the next Justice League movie. Star Wars, Justice League, where are we going?
Oh, that's so tough. Man, okay, I if I don't answer Star Wars, I'm going to be in trouble. My youngest daughter, Kitty, is the biggest Star Wars fan. So many years ago, she was like 5 years old. She's like 15 now, but she was 5 years old. My wife was going out of town, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for like the next 3 days for these children. So I went out, and it was at a time that the Star Wars like DVDs were like out of print, and so I had to go to like a used bookstore to find it. And so I got like all the Star Wars movies, and we watched them. And my daughter, it was like the scales fell from her eyes. She was the biggest Star Wars fan. So in honor of my daughter Kitty, I'm gonna say Star Wars, even though I actually am a big Justice League fan, and that would be pretty cool too. I'm gonna go Star Wars.
Oh my goodness, I actually had Justice League. I cannot believe this tonight. I'm 0 for 5. It's cool.
Oh no.
It's okay. Dave, what do you have, man?
I had Star Wars because Man, there's so much
Oh,
you can do with that. There's so many, a roller coaster of emotions through that whole
man.
franchise that you can
Yeah.
tap into. It really
And
pushes
you
you to
can,
the limit,
if you
Mark.
ever want to get weird, you can do like the Cantina Band kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
yeah,
you go.
man. Oh, Dane, I
Do
can't
all
believe
that.
this, Dane. Like Dane's won the last three in a row. I'm in a slump right now, Dane. So
Yeah.
kudos, Dane. Congrats. So thanks. So Mark,
Yeah.
that's a little segment. Hopefully, man, interviews you've done something a little different. That's called rapid
It was
fire. So
very
hope you enjoy.
different. Yeah, I like how specific y'all got with, I don't pick like what would be my favorite. It's got to be this or it's got to be this.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Well, thanks for being a good sport, Dan. I'll give it back to you for that last segment, Dan.
Yeah, on this last segment, Mark, we call it an open mic. We kind of open the floor to our guests to say maybe a few inspirational words or kind of leave something to some of our younger guests that are, either aspiring athletes or musicians that, need a little help on the way. Um, is there something maybe you've carried with you, like a philosophy or a mantra that you could maybe pass down to some of our younger listeners and viewers to help them on their path as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if it's because we're sort of coming up on, this is like graduation season. People are
Mhm.
graduating from college and they're kind of thinking about what the next thing they want to do. I think that people always, maybe not always, but most people, they have like this big, crazy, wild dream, something they want to pursue, something they want to do. And then they
Mhm.
also feel like they've got to, they have to make a choice, either pursue their dream or they have to do something like super practical. They either have to, be a, Broadway actor or they've got to be a dentist. And
Yeah.
I would encourage you just to pursue both. There's a way, and sometimes you have to get really creative with it, but there's a way that you can do the crazy wild dream thing and you can also do something kind of practical. I know
Mhm.
in my case, I started out, started a band right out of high school, but I also went to college, was
Mhm.
majoring in engineering at Georgia Tech. It got to a point, I did that for a few years. It got to a point where the music got, was taking up so much of my time. I wasn't really able to focus on the school, so I had to put school down for a long time. I actually finished online a few years ago, but I kept both of those things going as long as I could. And I feel like because I was in college for a few years that I had, some life experience through doing that. And if I had, things hadn't panned out with the music, I think I would have been a very interesting engineer that maybe did music on the side or whatever. I ended up being a very nerdy, musician that really got into some of the technical aspects of the gear and, all
Mhm.
those kind of things. So, but I really think if you do, people just get stuck, trying to make these decisions. And I feel like if you just kind of start going, and maybe keep a couple of
Mm.
things, different options, and don't even really decide until you absolutely have to. I think that God will take you to a really interesting. Everybody has. I talk about this in my book that everybody has this. Hey, God, it's either got to be choice A or it's got to be choice B. He always comes through with this crazy secret option C that we
Yeah.
never thought. So that's what I always encourage people. Don't try to, it doesn't have to be this or this. You can find a way that you can do both.
Kind of thinking in and inside and outside the box at the same time. I made some notes,
Yeah.
like what you're
Yeah.
saying is I like your perspective, man, because it's true, like the grind, because I'm sure when you talked about, man, even some of the early days, you had to really grind to make that career, making yourself as a musician. I don't think people see the nights, the drives, the bus drives, the playing, not pack
Yeah.
shows before you got to the juggernaut that you are. They see the stage, they see the Grammys, they see the sold out Cornerstones and Red Rocks and all that. They're
Yeah.
not seeing those 10 people in the crowd type thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
grind. And the way you have worked it, I think this Dane and I have talked about the one thing I wish was different about this generation, this TikTok generation. They don't see behind the scenes. All they see is the instant. They see the
Yeah.
80,000, the followers, the millions of followers, and all. They don't see the grind. So hearing your perspective, where it's like it's actually kind of nice to have a backup plan. Congrats on going to school too, man. Because even though you've done
Yeah.
a great thing and made this great juggernaut of music, even someone as successful as yourself had a backup plan. I kind of like what he's saying, don't you, Dane? That
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, their passion isn't just one thing. I mean, you can pursue many things. I mean, even whenever you do go down that one path, sooner or later, you're going to come back to those other things that you enjoyed anyway. So go ahead and follow all the avenues. And like you said, God will put you where he wants you.
all roads lead home,
Absolutely.
right? Is
Yeah.
that what you say, Mark? All roads lead
That's
home.
right. All roads lead home. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Man. Well, Mark,
Wow,
I can't
good
say enough,
message.
man. It's man, I hope we get to see it close. I'm obviously going to share your solo stuff, and I'll try to find that link to send your book as well, man. You're one of those people that thank you for this opportunity to do a bucket list item. It's been a true honor. Once you come on the show, I hope you feel this. We'd love to have you back as you
Yep.
drop more music. We're an open source for you. Please come back through here. Don't be a stranger. We love what you're doing, and we think you should continue to make music. You've been a blessing to us, man. So we truly love it.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was fun.
Oh,
thank you, sir.
thank you.
Well, Mark, we'll get this out as soon as we can. We'll be in touch. I'll give you some time back your night. It's a true honor. Much love. We'll be in touch, and
Yep.
many more to come. Okay, so
All right, sounds good. Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Mark.
All right,
take
y'all
care, brother.
care. Okay, bye.
So Dan, I'm telling you, man, Mark, that I absolutely love him, man. Just he is amazing. Like, tell me what you thought of him. Was that not awesome or what?
Yeah, I mean, every time you meet a musician, they're so engaging and eager to tell you, what they've been through, whether it's the good things, they're also put in the bad things or some of the struggles they've had, reminding you that, hey, it's not as easy as everybody thinks. There's a lot of work you got to put into being great. There's nothing, like he said, nothing happens overnight. You got to keep that grind going. So, when you meet somebody that's done it that way, they're the most humble people that you can talk to. And that's probably why they're so engaging. They know, everybody's on different stages of that journey. So,
Mm.
be courteous to them and give them a word of encouragement. And that's
That
what we
was
love on this show.
that was so good for us to have that, Dan, because he's talked about it's neat, and he's, don't get me wrong, multiple Grammys. This dude's not
Yeah.
by any means not a novice, right?
Right.
Top
Yeah.
top of his game, right? I'm telling you, when
Yeah.
you listen to him, you put him up there with the Jerrys and the Lenny Kravitzes and the Anguses and all that. He just decided to go a different direction with his lyrics,
Yeah.
right? Amazing, top-notch, quality guitarist. And he's even saying, have a backup plan. You never know. Like you shoot for the stars. I heard a saying one time that he kind of correlates to: shoot for the stars and miss. That's okay. Just don't aim for a pile of mud and hit it, right? So it's like, we're gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and put your sights high, and then you have that backup plan, just in
Yep.
case. So that's
Absolutely.
practical rock star
Yep.
advice. Who would have thought from a rock
Yeah.
star getting practical advice? So
Absolutely. I
yeah.
can't wait to hear some of his stuff as he puts it out, his uh, solo music he puts out. It's gonna be great. I like his other stuff
Man.
that they've done.
Nothing he's ever done has gone wrong, so I can't wait to see what else he does. So, Mark, we'll make sure we get the links out. It's an
Absolutely.
honor. We appreciate you, guys. We got a cool week next week as we kind of transition the format into like 1 or 2 weeks, and then going down to one next week. Dana, we'll tell you this. I'm excited to go ahead and kind of put this out there. We have our buddy George from the Revivalist stopping by. You guys have probably all heard the song. It's a very popular song. You probably heard it really walking through the mall or somewhere like that. Wish I Knew You. It's a great song. He's stopping by, and then we also finally have our buddy Vic Murphy. Vic Murphy's a ex-pro BMX rider, doing some great things with his ministry. Took his ministry into BMX, so that's next week. Cannot wait for that. And then we'll take a little breather for Mother's Day, of course, and then we'll hit the week of the 19th. Our friend Carrie Mack, as we call her, Toby Mack's sister, stops by, and our buddy Brandon Cole, you may know from kind of the Bam Margera scene. So it's going to be a cool next couple of weeks. We got a lot of good stuff down the pike. So don't go anywhere, because we're now amped up and ready to go through December. Got a lot of good content ahead.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Mark, again on behalf of the doctor himself, on behalf of Third Day. Don't forget, as always, that we love you. And Dane,
Thank you for listening.